The ball hit the net at the 11th minute. Mehdi Taremi had done something extraordinary. Ehsan Hijasafi played a disguised pass from a free kick, splitting the Belgian wall with a ball nobody in the stadium saw coming. Taremi had already begun his run before the wall realized what was happening. He received the ball at the edge of the area, spun away from a defender in a single motion, and buried it past Thibaut Courtois with the finish of a man who had been preparing for this moment his entire career. SoFi Stadium, 70,000 people, erupted. Players running, coaches rising, Iranian flags waving in every section of the ground. 30 years of World Cup absence suddenly feeling like prologue to something real. And then the referee raised his arm. VAR, offside check. The goal scorer standing still on the pitch, hands on his hips, staring at the middle distance while the machine reviewed what the eye had just celebrated. 4 Iranian players had been marginally offside when the pass was played. Technically correct, within the laws. A goal given by the emotion of the moment, taken back by the precision of the technology. 0-0. And in that silence, the question that has followed this team since the moment they arrived at this tournament became impossible to ignore. How did Iran get here in the first place? Because the answer to that question is not a football answer. It begins not on a training pitch or in a tactical debrief, but in the early hours of February 28, 2026, when the world changed in ways most of it was not ready for. That night, military operations began between the United States and Israel on one side, and Iran on the other. Within days, Iran's supreme leader was dead. The country was in a state of conflict that its own sports minister described as incompatible with sending a national football team abroad. He went on state television. He was unequivocal. Under no circumstances can we participate in the World Cup. Not a condition, not a negotiating position, under no circumstances. And yet here was Taremi, in a stadium in Inglewood, California, spinning away from a Belgian defender and scoring a goal that the machine would take back, but that his body had produced anyway, through instinct and quality and the kind of preparation that only happens when a player decides, somewhere deep inside himself, that the football is the one space when none of the other things apply. But that was only part of the story. Because what happened in the weeks between the sports minister's declaration and the 11th minute against Belgium is one of the most extraordinary tales any team has ever carried to a World Cup. And it has almost nothing to do with the football. After the sports minister spoke, FIFA President Gianni Infantino responded at the FIFA Congress in Vancouver in late April. Not diplomatically. I am confirming straight away that of course Iran will be participating. He said it like a man who had been asked the same question for 2 months and was exhausted by having to answer it. What followed was a negotiation without precedent in tournament history. The Iranian Football Federation produced a 10-point document, guaranteed visas for every player, their anthem played correctly, their flag respected, their delegation protected at airports, hotels, and in transit. Safe passage at every point in the tournament. FIFA agreed to what it could. The United States government agreed to what it was willing to. And the gap between those two things is where Iran has been living ever since. Their original base camp had been set up in Tucson, Arizona. Months of planning, a facility assessed and approved, training schedules built around it. Then the United States government announced that the Iranian squad would not be permitted to stay overnight on American soil. Not in Tucson, not anywhere. FIFA contacted Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum. An alternative was brokered. Tijuana, the border city in northern Baja California, directly across the crossing from San Diego. Iran would train there, sleep there, recover there, and for every match, they would wake up in Mexico and drive to the border. Try to imagine that for a moment. Not as a logistical inconvenience, as a lived daily reality. A national football team, competing at the World Cup their country's government tried to prevent them from attending, waking up each match day in a country that is not the host. Crossing an international boundary with their training bags. Passing through security checks and immigration processing with a particular uncertainty that never fully disappears when you are a citizen of a country in active military conflict with the nation you are crossing into. They did it for the New Zealand match. They did it for Belgium. They will do it again for Egypt. And the first time they crossed that border, nobody fully knew what awaited them on the other side. Not the players, not the coach, not the federation officials who, as would soon become clear, would not be able to cross it themselves. The opening match against New Zealand told the world something important before the political story had even fully developed. Iran came to play. From the opening minutes, they pressed with a structure and intensity that surprised a New Zealand side that had prepared for caution. Sardar Azmoun was aggressive in the channels. Taremi dropped deep to link play, drawing New Zealand center backs out of position, and creating space for runners behind them. The first goal came from exactly that pattern, a Taremi touch and release, creating the opening that Azmoun converted with confidence. New Zealand equalized. Iran pressed again. New Zealand scored a second. Iran did not fold. What they produced in the final 20 minutes of that match revealed something about the character of this group. Trailing with time running out, they pushed forward with the kind of collective belief that cannot be manufactured or coached in a training session. It has to be earned. And Iran's second equalizer, arriving deep in injury time, felt like the product of a team that had been told from every direction that being here was impossible, and had decided to use that impossibility as fuel. 2-2, a draw that felt, in context, like something more. Because Iran had not simply survived, they had competed, against a team with nothing to lose, in a stadium that is simultaneously their most welcoming and most hostile environment. They had played football. Taremi praised the atmosphere after the match. He said it felt like playing at home. He was not being diplomatic. The noise, the passion, the intensity of 70,000 people with strong feelings about Iran inside a single stadium in California reached the pitch, and the players felt it as energy. Whatever the political complexity of who was producing that energy and why, it did not feel hostile to the men in green, white, and red. But that was only what Taremi chose to say publicly, and that's where things become even more complicated. Los Angeles is home to more than 200,000 Iranian Americans, the largest Iranian diaspora community outside Iran itself. People who left, or whose parents left, after the Islamic Revolution of 1979. People for whom the Islamic Republic is not an abstraction, but the government that transformed the country they came from into somewhere they could not return. Outside SoFi Stadium, for both of Iran's Los Angeles matches, protests were organized. Hundreds gathered with the pre-revolutionary lion and sun flag, the tricolor used before 1979, which has become the symbol of opposition to the current Iranian government. FIFA had banned the flag from inside the stadium before the tournament. A court challenge was mounted, days before the New Zealand opener. The ban was upheld hours before kickoff. Inside the stadium, enforcement proved nearly impossible. And the anthem. Both games. The moment the music began, the boos started. Not from neutral fans or rival supporters. From Iranian Americans who had come to see the match, but had also come to say, in the most public space available to them, that the anthem playing over the speakers did not represent them. That the Football Federation wearing the badge of the Islamic Republic did not speak for the Iran they carried in their memory. The result was an atmosphere unlike anything the World Cup had produced in years, a stadium divided, not along national lines, but along generational and political lines, with the football playing out in the middle. But now was Sunday. Belgium, 11 minutes in, and Taremi had just been told by a machine that his goal did not count. He did not argue. He did not confront the referee. He walked back to the center circle with the expression of a man who has learned, through the specific kind of difficulty this tournament has imposed on him, that the only response available is to keep going. Belgium began to dominate possession. Kevin De Bruyne, showing glimpses of the quality that has defied his career, began to find pockets between Iran's defensive lines. In the 21st minute, Yuri Tielemans struck a powerful effort from distance. It was the kind of shot that tests a goalkeeper's positioning and reflexes simultaneously. Alireza Berenvand answered it, one-handed, diving to his left, the ball redirected around the post before it had finished moving. And then, before Belgium could celebrate the corner, Berenvand was already back on his feet, organizing his defenders, adjusting his positioning, talking. Always talking. The communication of a goalkeeper who understands that his voice is as important as his hands. Romelu Lukaku came next. A point-blank opportunity from a De Bruyne delivery, the kind of chance Lukaku has scored in his sleep across 15 years of elite football. He connected. Berenvand stopped it. The crowd, which had been divided about everything else, made a single, unified sound in that moment. Surprise, because what the Iranian goalkeeper was producing was not luck. It was technique and concentration at the highest level the sport offers. On the Belgian bench, Rudi Garcia made notes. His team was creating. The shots were there. 23 of them would arrive before the final whistle. But something in the way Iran was defending, the compact shape, the willingness to absorb pressure without panicking, the goalkeeper behind them, reading angles that elite forwards were not expecting to be read, was preventing those shots from becoming goals. And Iran were not simply defending. In the 44th minute, Maxim de Kuiper received a perfectly weighted chipped pass from Tielemans, and volleyed from close range. The technique was immaculate. The timing was perfect. The ball was traveling toward the corner with the kind of pace that beats most goalkeepers. Berenvand saved it. his second spectacular stop of the half. The Belgian players looked at each other with an expression that matches had seen before, when a team is doing everything correctly and the result refuses to follow. Halftime, 0-0. Iran had been outpossessed, outshot, outpressed by a team carrying players from the Champions League, the Premier League, the best clubs in European football. And they were level, with a goal that had gone in and been taken back, and a goalkeeper who had refused to let anything else through. That was the shape of the first half. Belgium creating, Iran absorbing and threatening, the balance between those two things producing the kind of tension that makes football worth watching, even when the scoreboard shows nothing. The second half changed in a moment nobody anticipated. Nathan Ngoy, Belgium's center-back, received a back pass from a teammate. It was badly struck. Under-hit. The ball slowed in front of him, and Taremi, who had been tracking the play with the intelligent movement that elite strikers develop over years of understanding defensive errors, accelerated. Ngoy panicked. He raised his arm into Taremi as the striker tried to pass him. Straight red card. Belgium down to 10 men with 25 minutes remaining. The Iran bench rose. The Iranian sections of the stadium rose. For the first time in the match, the balance of probability had shifted. The team that had been defending for their lives now had an opportunity they had not been given the entire first half. Taremi nearly scored again. A long throw was flicked on by Hossein Kanani, and Taremi connected, forcing Courtois into his best save of the match. The Belgian goalkeeper spread himself, low and wide, getting enough of his body behind the ball to deflect it wide, when a goal had looked inevitable. Courtois and Berenvand, mirror images of two goalkeepers operating at the level their clubs pay them for, each refusing to let the scoreboard move. Iran pushed. Belgium defended with the desperate energy of a team that knows a draw is genuinely the better result. Garcia made triple substitutions trying to inject life into his attack, while simultaneously protecting what he had. Hans Vanaken, arriving from the bench, blasted a rebound over the bar from close range. Dodi Lukebakio found space on the left, but could not produce the final ball. And when the final whistle came, the scoreboard showed what it had shown since the 11th minute. 0-0. Belgium's head coach Rudi Garcia sat with his face in his hands. "We had matches like this before, and usually scored at least 3 goals, he said afterward. "That is part of a slow start. We lacked efficiency. We know what result we need against New Zealand." What Garcia did not say publicly, but what the statistics made unavoidable, was that Belgium had just failed to score in a World Cup match, despite 23 shots, against a team operating from a hotel in Tijuana and crossing a border to reach the stadium. Against a team whose coaching staff had members absent because visas were denied. Against a team whose anthem had been booed before the opening kickoff of each of their 2 matches. 0-0, 2 points from 2 games, Iran ahead of Belgium on goals scored. And that's where things become even more complicated. Because the point Iran earned against Belgium was not just a tactical result, it was something the football world was not quite prepared for. Neutral observers who had come to the tournament knowing Iran's story only through headlines about border crossings and visa denials were watching the matches and finding something unexpected. The football was good. Not good for a team under these circumstances, not good given what they had overcome. Objectively, technically, tactically good. The defensive organization was the kind that coaching staffs spend months building. The transitions were disciplined. The goalkeeper was exceptional. And Taremi, as a focal point for everything Iran tried to do going forward, was operating at a level that reminded watchers why Inter Milan had wanted him in the first place. What happened next surprised almost everyone. Social media, which had been covering Iran's tournament primarily through the political lens of border restrictions and anthem controversies, began to fill with a different kind of conversation. Football people, analysts, and former players and supporters with no connection to Iran whatsoever started posting about the quality of what they were seeing on the pitch. Berenvand's saves were circulating not as human interest clips, but as examples of elite goalkeeping. Taremi's movement in the disallowed goal was being compared to Wout Weghorst's famous routine against Argentina in 2022, praised for its creativity, even in being disallowed. Neutral fans were beginning to want Iran to qualify, not because of the political complexity, because of the football. Because somewhere in the combination of a goalkeeper who refuses to be beaten and a captain who scored a disallowed goal and walked back to the center circle and waited for the next opportunity, there is a team worth watching. The real story was something else entirely. Because as the group approaches its final match day, the scenario that sits in front of Iran requires not just a football result, but a specific alignment of events across multiple matches in a single day. Iran versus Egypt in Seattle on June 26th. Belgium versus New Zealand simultaneously. A win for Iran combined with Belgium failing to win by a sufficient margin, sends Iran through. It is not simple. It requires results to fall in a particular way, but it is possible. And in a tournament where this team has done things that were not supposed to be possible from the moment they boarded a plane in Tehran, possible has a specific weight that it does not carry for other squads. The preparation for Egypt will follow the same pattern. A hotel in Tijuana, a border crossing on matchday morning, a 24-hour window that does not allow for the kind of settled preparation that produces the sharpest possible performance. Absent officials, a coaching staff managing substitutions without the full team that should be there. Coach Gallinoi will stand in his technical area, having crossed the border that morning, and make decisions with whatever is available to him. Taremi will lead the team out. Baron Vond will take his position in goal, and begin the communication and concentration that has made him one of the tournament's most watched players. The anthem will play, whatever happens in the stands will happen, and then the football will begin. Iran have played 2 World Cup matches under these circumstances. They have scored twice, conceded twice, produced one of the tournament's most discussed goalkeeping performances, created a disallowed goal that had a full stadium believing, and earned 2 points against opponents who, on paper and by every objective measure, were stronger. The question that Egypt now has to answer is the same one New Zealand and Belgium answered with draws they did not fully control. How do you break down a team that has decided, somewhere between the hotel in Tijuana and the border crossing and the boot anthem and the disallowed goal, that none of the things trying to stop them are going to stop them? Taremi said, after the New Zealand match, that it felt like playing at home. He was describing something real, not the stadium, not the city, not the political complexity of a diaspora divided about whether to cheer for the team playing in front of them. He was describing what it feels like to play football when you have already proven to yourself, in the hardest possible way, that you are capable of being there, despite everything. After the Belgian match, Gallinoi addressed the team in a dressing room in Los Angeles before they boarded the transport that would take them back across the border to Tijuana. The specifics of what he said are not recorded. But what he knew, what everyone in that room knew, is that the point they had earned against a Belgian team with 23 shots was not an accident. It was evidence. Evidence that this specific group of players, in these specific circumstances, with these specific restrictions and these specific absences, and this specific relationship with the city where their matches are being played, is capable of competing with anyone at this World Cup. Egypt in Seattle on June 26th, another border crossing, another 24 hours, another anthem, another crowd with complicated feelings about who exactly is on the pitch and what they represent, and Baron Vond in goal, and Taremi leading the line, and a team that has been told from every direction and by forces far more powerful than a football federation that they should not be there. If they win, they will not just be through to the knockout stages of the World Cup. They will have become one of the most extraordinary stories this tournament has ever produced. And they will have done it the only way available to them. Match by match, border crossing by border crossing, disallowed goal by disallowed goal, from a hotel in Tijuana. What do you think? Is Iran's story the most extraordinary of the 2026 World Cup? And if Baron Vond keeps a clean sheet against Egypt, and Taremi finds the back of the net, does that result go down as one of the most remarkable qualification stories in the history of this tournament? Leave it in the comments.